Rob and I'm from Team Hope. I want to share with you some thoughts about the experience of learning. And a good medium for us to talk about that is the medium of music, because I have taught music over the years to many people. I'm going to demonstrate a song to you. It's called a souling. And if you're my age, you remember Peter, Paul and Mary. But if you're younger than that, well, I don't suppose you have heard of them. Anyway, this song is divided into 4 sections. So one of the things we do with learning is we break it up. We call that chunking. And each section has 4 parts. So the first section, in the first part, we only play with one string. And it goes like this. And then you'll see as I demonstrate it later how that builds up into the 4 parts. The second section, part 1, we start using the thumb and the finger together. And the third and fourth sections, we start using all the strings. We use a technique called syncopation, where the thumb and the finger are playing 2 notes at the same time. So let me demonstrate the song to you, and then we'll talk about learning. So you can see that we had the 4 parts and each section, and then we play it all together, and it sounds like a flowing song. Now I've taught that song to a wide age range, probably sometimes people as young as maybe 8 or 9 years, and I remember my oldest student was a man in his 80s. Now I know that how it is to learn a piece, and I also know what it's like to teach a piece. And teaching has its challenges, but learning has the greatest challenge. I can't just demonstrate a song and expect people to pick it up straight up. Learning is not an event, it's a process. Learning something new takes time. Now many years ago, a man by the name of Abraham Maslow developed a model of learning called the 4 steps of learning. Now he used the word competent and incompetent, but we change that these days because incompetent tends to have a negative connotation. So we use the word able and unable. Step 1 is unconsciously unable. I can't do it, and I didn't know I couldn't do it. One guitar lesson usually fixes that up. Step 2 is consciously unable. I can't do it, but now I know I can't do it. Step 1, unconsciously unable. Step 2, consciously unable. Step 3 is consciously able. I can do it, but I'm thinking about it all the time. I'm watching those frets, I'm doing my best, and man, I'm not thinking about anything else. My head is glued to this guitar. But do it enough times and you can make it to step 4, which is unconsciously able. I can now do it without thinking. See, here's the deal. You can't get to step 4 without going through steps 1, 2 and 3. So to learn a new skill, we have to learn new ways of thinking and behaving and relating to it. So it can be very difficult and very challenging. So what I encourage people is break it down into the 4 steps. Going from step 1 to step 2 is the biggest challenge, because you kind of can assume you know how to do something until you're confronted with the opportunity to have a go. But once you find out you can't do it, that's when most people will give up. So I encourage people to remember that. Going from step 2 to step 3 requires a lot of repetition. There's no avoiding that. There's no way around that at all. So what I encourage people is to be kind to themselves. It's really hard going from one to the other. It's really difficult when you know you can't do it to keep trying. But if you keep trying with enough repetition, then you're going to reach a point where you can do step 3. You're doing it consciously able. You're concentrating on it all the time. And here's the really cool part. Do it enough times and you're going to work out, I'm not even concentrating and I'm playing it. But you have to do it and keep at it. So the important lesson, don't give up after step 2. Keep going. Now over the years, I learned that you could apply those 4 steps of learning into a whole lot of things in life. You could apply it to things that I used to come up in my work in the criminal justice system. Now when I did work there, I worked often in post-release care. And what that meant was helping men and teenage boys who'd been locked up in prison, that if they're going to make it on the outside, they had to learn new ways of thinking, new ways of behaving. Had to find new peer groups, new ways of dealing with their anger, new ways of dealing with their impulse behaviour. Now we have a thing called recidivism, and what that means is people who get released from secure care, which is the official term for prison, end up coming back. The percentage in my state of South Australia was, and I believe still is, around 72-73%. What that means is for every 100 men released from prison, 73 will return. And I thought, why is this so? And I thought, hang on, I'm going to apply these 4 steps of learning. I'm going to employ it to make these guys think about different ways of thinking. And I noticed that a change began to occur, because I'd warn them. I'd say, guys, you know, when you come out, you have to behave in different ways, and you realise that it's going to take time. And what was happening is you're going between step 1, you get to step 2, and you become consciously aware that you can't do it, and so back to prison you go. But when I taught them that the challenges between step 2 and step 3, and it takes hard work to get there, and then really hard work to get to step 4, I began noticing a different way of thinking. They were starting to find new ways of getting angry and dealing with impulse behaviour. They started being kind to themselves, because I'd tell them everybody faces the challenge of going from step 2 to step 3. These days I'm a pastor, and I do a lot of work with conflict resolution and marriage counselling, and I use the 4 steps all the time. People finding new ways to relate each other. I'd say be kind. It takes a while to get from step 2 to step 3. I'm also very passionate about people growing into the people who they are meant to be. I believe that we all have a purpose in life, and sometimes we're held back. Might have a bad life habit, or we might really want to do something, but we just can't find the road to the opportunity. And then we finally have a crack at it, going after the dream, and get to step 2 and people give up. Have you been there? Have you really wanted to do something? And you got to step 2, you're like, here I am at last, having a crack at what I really want to go for, and I can't do it. Well, enter Mr. Maslow. Be kind to yourself. Keep trying, because if you're going to learn something new, we all have to go through those steps. When you get to step 2 and you can't do it, and you know you can't do it, don't write it off as impossible to go any further, because you can get to step 3. If you try hard enough and practice and keep the repetition coming, you can make it. You can get there. You can do it. You think it all the time, you can do it. But I've got to tell you, so you keep doing it, you'll get to step 4. I remember when I first started playing the guitar, just always wanted to. I liked the image, but when I had it in my hands, I didn't think I'd get anywhere. But these days I get such a lot of blessing out of playing with other musicians and doing that. I've noticed some things in the Bible about Mr. Maslow's 4 steps. There was a guy called Paul. We call him the Apostle Paul. He wrote much of the New Testament, a large part of it. And what I'm about to share with you might surprise you if you've never heard of it. This spiritual giant, this genius, didn't understand himself. He discovered that the good things he wanted to do, he couldn't do, but he ended up doing the bad things that he didn't want to do. Have you been there? I'm going to turn over a new leaf, I'm going to try my hardest, and you end up going back. Well, the Apostle Paul was there. You can tell from what he wrote in the Bible. He knew what was right, he dearly wanted to do it, but he couldn't achieve it. He actually said, and I'll quote to you, this is what you can read in the Bible, what he said about this: I have the desire to do what is right, but I cannot achieve it. It's one of the things I love about the Bible. It's a real book about real people. Paul got so frustrated with this, he called himself wretched. And man, I'll tell you, that encourages me, because if people like him went through this sort of challenge, then it's okay for me to go through this sort of challenge, and it's okay for you to go through this sort of challenge. So how did Paul break through? Well, he broke through forgiveness. He'd done some pretty terrible things, and he realised that God is in the forgiving business. I mean, that's what the cross is all about. Jesus takes into himself the infection of our guilt. And he dies on the cross, our guilt dies on the cross. And Paul discovered what it was like to be free of guilt. That meant there were new ways of thinking about himself, new things to think about, new discoveries from getting to step 2 to step 3. Guilt is a thief. Ignoring it doesn't work. You can sweep it under the... You can try and change the rules. I didn't really do anything wrong. Well, if you did something wrong, you should feel guilty. We're all in that boat. But you don't get rid of it by ignoring it. You get rid of it by being forgiving. Have you been trying to forgive yourself? That's not working out. Just wish you had that grace that could in your life. And you hear a guy like me saying, I sleep well at night. I'm not guilty. It's not because I'm a great guy. It's because I'm a forgiven guy. You want to get there. You want to break free of guilt, but you can't manage it. But I'm telling you, there are 4 steps in learning how to break through. Those 4 steps require hard work. It can be really hard work. But as you're watching this, I want to encourage you to keep going. Keep at it until you are unconsciously able. I close this off by telling you, I've done some things in life that I am not proud of. And I no longer suffer from guilt because I've been forgiven. You too can have that experience, and you too can go through the 4 steps of learning and discover the incredible reality of being forgiven and going through life without being weighed down by guilt. I encourage you to have a think about these things. My name's Rob and I'm from Team Hope.